How would Jean Baudrillard feel about modern worker exploitation? Well, today we're going to take some of Baudrillard's theories on exploitation and pin them down on a world that is inundated with digital technology, corporate work environments, and everything else we have to deal with as modern workers. And Baudrillard died before social media and all these other things. So a lot of his theories have to be updated. And that's what we are doing today. And so the main shift from when Baudrillard was talking about exploitation, which was mostly at the start of his career when he was kind of a proto-Marxist, was that is that commodity production is no longer where exploitation happens most of the time. And what do I mean by that? Well, if we go back to earlier times, obviously, and the key of Marxist philosophy stems from a reaction to the malignant aspects of the Industrial Revolution, where workers were being heavily exploited in factories. And all throughout the late 1800s and in the early 20th century, there was heavy worker exploitation going on. Not like there isn't now, but it was in the factory. It was for the creation of commodities. But now we've created a world where we can reproduce simulacra, where we can, for instance, create a YouTube video like this. Like right now, you are seeing a simulacra. And if you don't know what a simulacra is, it's a copy of a copy. At one point in objective reality, I was filming this video and now you are consuming it. But digital technology has made it so that for this video right now to be distributed to millions of people or billions if they wanted to watch it, it's pretty low energy. It's not like some environmental catastrophe for me to be able to speak onto the internet and distribute it everywhere, which is much different than if I wanted to distribute. If I was like, I'm going to give out a billion remotes, that would be a huge environmental impact and cost a lot of labor and all these other things. And so that's also one of the main differences between now and then is a lot of the things that we create now in the digital world can be scaled. They can be reproduced and scaled as before. It was only what you could personally do. And that may seem like a good thing. And at some level, it is a good thing if we use it in the right way. But obviously, if you examine the world around us, a lot of the time we are once again being exploded for these codes and these ideas that we create, and they're being used for not so great things. And so instead of going to the office every day, we exist in these niche environments, whether it's in my home office or you're going to some corporate work environment in a cubicle, or even a corporate traditional environment, like being a mechanic in the Costco Tire Center or something like that. We have been put into these niche bureaucracies that most of the time are serving these very large corporations that sometimes even transcend our own country, if it's something like Google or a multinational or international company like McDonald's or Costco or something like that. And if you guys don't already know, Right Conscious is the headquarters of everything related to Jean Baudrillard on YouTube. I'm slowly building up a big library of Baudrillard videos. The playlist is down below, so go check out some of the other videos. But we have to go a little bit deeper and update Baudrillard here, because what we are experiencing now and how we are being exploited in this corporate and modern work environment is different than the classical environment, because there are three different levels of exploitation that we're going to be talking about today and that really exist in general in the modern workforce. The first one being the classical exploitation of people for their physical body. And this is through factory work, and this is slowly being implemented out of the United States in general. When we think about a lot of the worst jobs, dealing with chemicals or cobalt mining or the sweatshop factories in China, like that's not happening here anymore, but it's still happening somewhere out in the world. And so that exploitation is still happening, but it's not really in Western or American consciousness as much anymore. And for a lot of us, that's a lot of the jobs that immigrants and the lower class are going to continue to still have to do until maybe AI replaces a lot of those jobs. But the second side of exploitation is actually a really fun one to talk about, because it's the corporate work environment. It's the icky feeling you get when you're somewhere and they talk about mission statements and values and we're all a family. Whenever I'm at a job and they're like, we're all a family, I get a little bit suspicious, because if you look back in time, that's never been a very real idea. That's actually been a romanticization and a simulacra of an idea. Because, for instance, yesterday, I'm a high school teacher. We read a Native American story by Leslie Marmon Silko. And in the story, there's a family living in kind of this shack of a house given to them by a rancher because the husband is working on this ranch. And the husband works there for 30 years, helps out every single day. But one day falls on his horse and hurts his leg, so he can no longer work. And the next day, the rancher throws the family and them off the property, and it leads to all these unfortunate events, but there's no real family environment there. And that transcends race and has happened in countries all throughout time. If you get lucky, maybe your insular family takes care of you and is kind to you, but most of the time, the rest of the world doesn't really care about you and is just focused on total self-preservation and exploitation. So when the whole family thing gets brought up, I'm like, have we transcended all these malignant aspects of consciousness so that we can all view each other as family? Because I hopefully can be able to do that. But when I look at everyone else, I'm a little bit sus about their ability to do that. And that is seen because these jobs, at their core, are performance based, and people get fired and exploited all the time. And the way that people are exploited, excuse me, in the modern work environment is not just at the bodily level. So if we look at step number one, it's mostly of the body. But why do you think people say all the time after they go to these jobs, why do corporate jobs suck your soul? And let's kind of dive a little bit deeper into that now. Because obviously, while at these jobs, you're working away and there's a somewhat of a physical exploitation, but the real exploitation is in the way you have to dress up, the way you have to follow the values of the company. Because when we all dress up, we have to play a character. When you go to work, when these corporate work environments, you cannot actually be yourself. And so you have to take a little bit of yourself away and play this character. And everyone else is playing these characters. But what are characters? Characters are something that happens in fiction, in a movie. It's these literary simulacras. But in this corporate work environment, that's what we're doing. And this is why there's office politics, office romances, all these problems. Johnny hates Jimmy. There's always the woman at work that has beef with everyone or who is really mean. There's always the guy who's kind of the water cooler leader. All the different archetypal presences are always present. And this is reinforced actually through the physical environment, because we go to work and why is it landscaped well? Is there art on the walls and a ping pong table and an exercise room and these community building activities and all these different things? It's to help us think that the modern work environment is actually a third home to us, or a second home. Like, this is our vacation home. We get to go here and we get to play out these different roles. We get to go out and play out this fantasy every single day. And what that's doing, though, is because we're not actually consenting to this. This isn't actually a very good thing. This isn't like I'm consciously, doing some weird role play after work. We have to role play all day. And so thus our souls get exploited because they are also on the table. And I'm getting a lot of these ideas, or at least the 3 potential sites of worker exploitation, from an essay called Social Class and Postmodernity by the McConnells. It's a husband and a wife. So shout out to them for putting in the work so that I can exploit their previous work and turn their codes into what we're going to talk about now in the third environment of exploitation, which is now new in the digital technology era. So when we look at something like a book, so let's say I wrote this book. This isn't an old book. Let's say this is a classic book in the 1900s. Well, you get this book and you read it, and you maybe can write in it and like change it in that manner. But overall, a book is a book, or a piece of art is this piece of art. And especially commodities like a remote or a candle or whatever they had in the 1900s, a vase or something. That's what it is. It can be used for multiple things, I guess. I could use this as a weapon, but it's really just a remote. But now let's say if I write a book and I upload it online, well, people can change it. If you illegally download it or just get it, you can change the PDF and add stuff to it. You could take something like this essay, Social Class and Postmodernity, and I can revise it and remix it just like I'm doing now. The original code, the original simulacra, can be remixed almost infinitely. And when this happens enough, we actually exist in this environment where there's too much information existing, in reality, and we head into a hyper reality where there's too much information for us to process. And once these codes get set, once the computer code or the book is uploaded online, it can be reproduced endlessly. There is no actual end to this. And that's where it gets insane. Like this video, I could remix it into certain shorts that could be remixed and turned into a podcast, and someone could be inspired by it and then go do their own art, and the cycle never ends anymore. And so the new third site of worker exploitation is where the codes are created, where the original simulacra are created. I imagine it's like we're in some dystopian reality. And that's what's happening at all the way up to Google, down to the local startup, or just a local artist like me who's making YouTube videos online. I'm creating the original code for further simulacra exploitation. But a lot of the time when it's not independent, so if you look at someone at Google, right, what they are creating is not their own. If they create something in their office, they can't go use it on their own. They are functioning as vehicles for organized capital at the highest level, at the level of corporations that we've never seen before, multi-trillion-dollar corporation. But what makes this different than the modern work environment, like the corporate work environment where everyone is a family, is that it's actually reflective of the 19th century. Because if I create this code, I might have to sign an NDE, a non-disclosure agreement or whatever, or NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and do all these other things, and I'm going to be exploited. And when you look at like, especially, sometimes this happens here, like what Elon Musk was trying to do. I'm not some Elon Musk hater or like any of this, but when he said no more working from home, you're going to come to work and you're going to work. And if you look at how people like in China and Japan treat these like simulacra creators, they are working at this hardcore level. They are sleeping at work. They have no time for a personal life because they are just grinding out these crazy jobs. Like I hear in Japan, it's like you like work for 6 hours a day for 12 hours or more at a time. And so this is reflective of that deep exploitation of the body of the earlier factory exploitation. And what makes this really interesting is that I'm actually doing this. So once this video is finished, everyone, I'm going to turn the camera off, but I sleep in the room back behind me. The work never ends. Sometimes when I'm at home, I'm still working. This is my modern workplace is actually my home, and it's no different than the peasants back in the day that had to sleep where they were working. They had to keep the factory going all day. They had to continue throwing fire into the furnace to keep the production moving. And that's the same thing that's happening here. I'm being exploited for my codes, for the capital of YouTube, who is taking 50% of my ad revenue, which is crazy. But this is what grind culture is about. This is what the whole hustle culture is about. You can do anything you want. All you need is a phone or a computer and an internet connection, and you can make $1 million online. And that's actually true. But it's been made now that these corporations, these people who are exploiting us, can get us anywhere now. The physical work, the 70, 80 hours a week to where people die. If you look at the life expectancy rate in the West, it's going down. I know people, I have one of my sister's ex-boyfriends. He was a very revered person in the corporate community in a certain field. He was like a pioneer and made a bunch of money. And he died before he was 40 years old because of health issues from him grinding the early part of his career in the tech industry in Silicon Valley, in the 2000s. At least that's why I would guess, people die all the time. But judging from what he would say about how hard he would work and everything that he had to do, it was insane. But now let me really blow some minds. Let's go to the next level. This is some fire right here. If you're still here, tell me what's up. If you're a new fan of the channel, my name is Ian. This is Right Conscious. We cover the greatest books and authors of all time. So if you want to see more Baudrillard content, obviously subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you. But where actually a lot of code exploitation is happening, where people never sleep, where existence happens and continues to happen, is actually on the streets, in the ghettos, in urban environments. Because if you look at slang words and rappers and the commodification of clothing and all these different things, where is that stemming from? Most of the time, it's happening from these urban environments where the cool and hip things are happening. And these people are living that reality. These people have to show up every day and live in a violent world where people are impoverished and sick. And what's happening to them? They're actually being exploited by everyone who's watching from around them. When someone sees there's a new style, like a drop shipper or something, he's like, bro, these kids over here in Baton Rouge, like they got this new thing going on. So this random dude in one of these little cubicles makes up a new clothing line based on that. And then because he knows how to run Facebook ads really well, or Instagram ads or something, runs that to the certain demographic of people who want to buy that. And thus he's exploited to people, and they've never actually gained anything from it. This is actually the pinnacle of code exploitation, is through the commodification of the style, mostly of urban people. Think about the hip hop community. Think about hip hop, being created on the East Coast and all of that. And the massive amount of money it's made everyone all across the globe. I mean, I'm sure it's hit trillions of dollars. And if we go into clothing and all the tours and the bigger audiences for music and what that's done for YouTube and Spotify and like all of that, like what hip hop has done is insane in terms of creating wealth for the world. But the people and groups of people who invented certain styles, whatever it is, whether it was New York rap or like there's a Memphis rap style. I listened to a rap group called the Suicide Boys, and they're two white dudes from New Orleans. And right now they are multimillionaires easily. They've made a ton of money off of rap. But there's something called Memphis rap it's from the 90s and early 2000s. And it's like where you distort your voice and you rap really fast. And it's kind of cool. But recently the Suicide Boys released an album or like a series of EPs that like do that same voice style, do that kind of Memphis rap remix style. Well, all those Memphis rappers back in the day, they didn't make any money from what they were doing. Maybe they made a little bit, and that rap style has long been dead. But when the Suicide Boys have done it, I'm sure at minimum, and they've probably will make over the course of time at least $1 million from the streams and the merch drops and all the other stuff from this little set of EPs. And that's not to say that they're wrong and they shouldn't do that. I think they should be able to do that. Obviously, I don't think there should be any restriction on art. But the people who innovated that, the people who were there and maybe even just inspired, like the friends of the rappers and the people who were instrumental in building that, Can they afford the $100 hoodie that Suicide Boys are selling? Maybe they can, but most likely they can't, because not many Americans and people in the Western world can afford a $100 hoodie still. This hoodie right here cost me $60, and it's actually for skiing because I'm a big skier and stuff, and it's like multi-layered and big. So it's like a spring day, and it was $60. And I felt like that was like, oh my God, like $60, like damn. And so now I want to read you guys a quote from the text I've been drawing some of this from, and it's really good. And we're right here at the top of the screen, where after the 5 where it says or it can be the entire life of the woman who adapted herself to modern professional existence and the special contingencies of that life for her sex. She may have made herself into a little production company to facilitate the shifting of roles from being daddy's little girl for her husband, a tough customer to the service people who would like to sabotage her efforts, a friend who is not afraid to show her vulnerability, a protective maternal presence for her children, a merely competent, non-threatening professional for her boss, a confidant to her dad. Every detail of her adaptation, every change of attitude, phrasing, costume, and cosmetics that permits her to come off as effectively feminine, maternal, domestic, and professional will be exploited as a code, simulated, and sold back to her. It's wild. I mean, wrap your mind around that really fast. The whole daddy's little girl thing has been manipulated now into OnlyFans, into sugar babies. The whole vulnerability movement with her friends has been manipulated by Brene Brown and the whole self-esteem movement that's gotten big. The whole cosmetic industry, obviously, with the Kardashians and the Jenners and what's happened over the last 15 years. These are all just typical maternal feministic things that are innate to women in general, at least in past culture, and is now being sold back to them, even though that's what they just automatically do most of the time. I know that's a generalization, but still. This is wild, right? And we can just kind of continue on with this analysis. But the exploitation, now that we're at this level, it goes so deep that we are now being exploited as groups, as people. We may not even know that's going on. Like, I remember reading this essay like 10 years ago, and a couple days ago, I picked it up and read it again. I was like, damn, I need to make a video about this. Because when I read that, I was like, oh God, I forgot it went this deep. Because I remember the whole rap exploitation thing, but just the exploitation of womanhood in general, or manhood in general now, with like masculine movements and all that stuff. It's honestly insane. So what do you guys think about this? Give me some of your thoughts. Do you enjoy Jean Baudrillard? Do you want to see some more content from me about him? And if you guys don't worry. I'm going to still make some, because I love this stuff. Like, Jean Baudrillard is a rabbit hole, and is one of the more potent people to analyze society through, because we have moved into further states of exploitation. You know, when you look at Foucault and Derrida and a lot of those guys, you know, the power dynamics and stuff, those are still present today, but they're kind of hidden, like kind of dissolved almost into this simulacra, hyper reality that we're existing in now. And that's why Jean Baudrillard, I feel like, is still very relevant today. So thank you guys for being here, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.